This is Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi. Here now, Tony Bruschi.
There is something deeply wrong with a system that keeps giving Bryan Kohberger new ways to take up oxygen. There is. This is one of those stories. It's not even so much about Kohberger. It's, again, about how we have such a deeply flawed system that allows for monsters to thrive. Even after they've admitted guilt, after we've locked them away permanently, the rights that we still allow them to have, the manipulation, the tactics, the access to other human beings, to other people's time, energy, goodwill, and in this case, lack of choice, but to do their jobs, because the system is built the way it is. Bryan Kohberger, he's not the first one to find ways of hijacking the system to his own screwed up way of thinking. We're going to talk about what's going on right now. This is not a rehash of old information, of new pieces in the puzzle that have been released by the police, by investigators, by whoever it may be. This is a new development in the damn story. You ready? Let's go through it. And in the comments section, let me know what you think. Tell me your thoughts. And please do hit subscribe as well. Do it right now so you don't forget and you don't miss any of our coverage in this. The murders he committed should have been the end of this story. 4 young lives stolen, a community shattered, and a courtroom that finally said, enough! But somehow the system that promised closure to the families of Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogen, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin just keeps churning. New motions, new filings, new hearings. What? I thought he couldn't do that. Yeah. We can't really technically file an appeal, but this is not an appeal. This is, I don't want to do what you've already said I have to do. Somebody else already did it for me. All these things stamped with Kohberger's name. And what's worse, every one of those filings forces his own defense attorneys to keep showing up, to keep billing hours, to keep representing a man whose guilt isn't in question anymore. And I want to make this clear. This is in no way a dig at his attorneys. And I think that's very important to understand in all this, because everybody's looking for a scapegoat here. Everybody's looking for someone to blame. How could this be happening? Well, those attorneys are just money hungry. They're out there trying to get... They're doing their job. And you know what? They don't have a choice. They can't just walk away from Kohberger because he's icky. No, they are state appointed. And they have a vested interest in keeping their law license and not destroying their own lives and livelihoods because of a madman. This story this time started when Kohberger's lawyers filed a motion saying he shouldn't have to pay restitution to the victims' families. Their argument? The families receive money through GoFundMe. Therefore, the expenses the prosecution is seeking aren't true economic losses under Idaho law. This is according to Kohberger. That filing, as tone deaf as it is. And let's not make any mistake here. His attorneys, I don't think, are sitting back there going, how can we really protect Kohberger and let him make a bunch of money after these horrible crimes that he's admitted to committing? No. If you're his attorney, you're appointed by law, and you have to represent, and ultimately, he is the one who makes the calls, Kohberger. It's not the attorneys. If he's figured out, or in his mind thinks he's figured out, well, GoFundMe should cover these people, not me, and he says to his attorneys that you need to file this, they have to file that. That's how that works. It's offensive on its face. It's arrogant. It's another slap in the face to families who've already endured more pain than anyone should have to. But here's the uncomfortable truth most people aren't talking about. The attorneys who signed that motion, Ann Taylor, Jay Weston Lodgson, and John Baldwin, they don't have a choice. Under Idaho law, once a public defender or court-appointed attorney takes on a case, they don't get to walk away just because their client is guilty, sentenced, or universally despised, or looked at as the devil. Well, they could quit. Yes. Yes, they could. And you could quit your job too the moment your boss says you need to do this. And then never be allowed to work in your field ever again. They knew as attorneys what they were signing up for, that they would be in situations like this. And they understand the law deeper than we do, because it's what they do. It's one of those, I'm going to yield to your expertise type things that people don't like doing anymore, because, of course, everyone's their own expert today. Don't be mad at the attorneys. Be mad at the system. Be mad at the system that forces them to have to file this sort of shit. If you want some sort of change, that's where it is. It's not on these attorneys. Idaho Criminal Rule 44.1 makes it clear defense counsel may withdraw only with court approval and only if the court finds good cause. The standard isn't, I'd rather not, he's a piece of shit. It's not even the case is over. It's the court decides. And again, if you'd like to continue practicing law, what your life is based on, your career, your passion, then you have to follow the rules to which our system works. Fix the system. So when the judge sentenced Kohberger to 4 consecutive life terms in July, that didn't automatically set his attorneys free. No, it actually locked them in further. Because once the plea was entered and the death penalty was off the table, the case moved into a kind of procedural limbo. The post-conviction phase, where there are still motions to file, restitution to dispute, records to correct, and rights to preserve for potential appeals. I thought he couldn't get an appeal. You're right. You're exactly right. So we thought the same thing of the Menendez brothers. We thought the same thing of so many other cases. It's crossing your T's and dotting your I's. And they are doing that. It is their job. And if Kohberger tells his lawyers, file this motion, and it's not clearly frivolous or illegal, they are obligated to do it. This is frivolous and illegal. No, it's not. It's heartless. It's insane. That's a lot of lawsuits. They're obligated to do this. That's not a choice. That is a duty. This is what people outside the legal world often miss. Once the system appoints you to represent someone like Bryan Kohberger, you become, in effect, his legal custodian. You kind of become his slave in some ways. You can advise, you can resist, you can argue with him, but you can't just walk away. The Constitution guarantees him the right to counsel at every stage of the criminal process, even after conviction. And in a case this complex, the court is not going to let new counsel come in cold to handle post-sentencing issues. So yes, you could say Ann Taylor and her team are essentially trapped in a system that keeps its defense attorneys tethered to the very person who made their state and their own lives a living nightmare for the last 3 years. And while they're trapped, the taxpayers are trapped too. Because all of this, every hour spent drafting that restitution motion, every meeting, every filing, every email is funded by the public. Kohberger isn't paying his lawyers. Idaho is. And if you're a resident of Idaho, you are. Again, if you're angry about this, I hear you. I am too. It is the system you need to fix. Getting angry at the attorneys and calling them names and they're money hungry and they're just doing this for money. No, they're not. They are not, and you're ignorant for saying that. Understand what the system is, how it works, and what you're talking about if you're going to argue it. The system that allows that doesn't differentiate between necessary legal work and motions that just keep a killer relevant. It doesn't. Because it's not a frivolous filing. It is not the attorney's fault. It's structural failure. The Idaho Public Defense Commission certifies attorneys like Taylor to handle death penalty cases. Once appointed, they have to stay on through sentencing and post-conviction motions unless the court relieves them. Like I said, it is meant to protect defendants' rights to ensure consistency and fairness and continuity in a case. That makes sense when someone's fate is still being decided. But once a killer like Kohberger admits guilt and takes a plea that spares his life, that same rule starts working against the public. Oh, this is horrible. We need to change it. Should we? Because there's a lot of cases where people are wrongly convicted. It creates a situation where the system itself becomes the weapon, where a convicted murderer can keep forcing the state to pay for months and motions that serve no purpose beyond satisfying his own need for control. And make no mistake, that's what this is, control. This is Kohberger doing what he's always done. When he committed those murders, he controlled the scene, the timing, the victim's vulnerability. When he was arrested, he tried to control the narrative. Silent in court, eyes down, just calculated enough to make people wonder what he was thinking. And now, locked in his cell, he's controlling the only thing he still can, the process. By filing motions like this one, he stays relevant. He keeps the court system orbiting around him, keeps the victims' families from moving on, and keeps his own attorneys chained to his will. You can almost hear the echo of his academic arrogance in it. The criminology student who studied what drives offenders to act now gets to act out the theory in real time, using the justice system as his laboratory. He doesn't need a weapon anymore. He has a legal team bound by law to keep doing his bidding, whether they like it or not. And that's the real tragedy of the phase of the case where we're in right now. The attorneys aren't villains here. They're professionals caught in an ethical trap, sworn to uphold the Constitution even when it means helping a man the whole world knows is guilty. They can't refuse his demands unless those demands are so outrageous that they violate the law, and this restitution motion, as grotesque as it is, doesn't cross that line. It is legal. It's bad faith, it's cruel, but it's legal. And the court will let it happen. Attorneys will file it, the state will respond, the judge will schedule another hearing, and the taxpayers will pay for every hour of it. That's a system we have, one that guarantees even the worst among us the right to counsel, but never stops to ask what happens when that right becomes a weapon against the rest of us. Kohberger has figured out how to keep manipulating a system that was built to protect fairness, not enable obsession. He's hijacked it, bending it to his own narcissistic rhythm. And the attorneys bound to him, people like Taylor and her team, are now unwilling players in that ongoing performance. They didn't choose this. The system chooses it for them. That's why this isn't a story about bad lawyers. It's a story about a justice system that doesn't know how to shut itself off. A system that guarantees due process but doesn't know when to declare enough. Because when even a man like Bryan Kohberger confesses, even after he's sentenced, even after he's locked away for life, the process doesn't end. It just grinds forward, feeding itself with time, money, and misery. The irony is brutal. Kohberger's defense team can't withdraw without permission, the families can't move on without peace, and the taxpayers can't stop paying without reform. The only person who gets what he wants is Bryan Kohberger. The man who built his entire identity around control, now controlling everyone else from a prison cell. It's not justice, it's bureaucracy enabling evil. And until the system changes, until there's a way for attorneys to be released when a case is truly over, we'll keep seeing stories like this. Motions that serve no one, hearings that reopen wounds, a system so committed to fairness that it ends up punishing the wrong people. Xana, Ethan, Kaylee, and Maddie are the victims here. Their parents shouldn't have to see their children's names dragged through the court filings anymore, and the attorneys forced to keep filing Kohberger's behalf shouldn't have to carry that burden either. Because when justice becomes servitude, when even the lawyers are prisoners of procedure, the system stops serving the living and starts serving the dead. Give me your thoughts in the comments section here on the podcast channel or on YouTube. Just search Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi and you'll find us right there. Is this something that should be reformed? I mean, it's a valid question. Because yes, it is being hijacked. It is being used inappropriately, but not illegally. And if you put certain restrictions on it, you may also restrict it where it could be used correctly. Still being used legally, because this is a legal use of it. But if you start restricting it, you not only shut the door, obviously, to misuse, but you also shut the door to justified use, to people who really do need the help of their attorneys because they've been wrongfully convicted, because something happened, and we see it all too often. Look at the yogurt shop murders. Look at, if you believe, Richard Allen, Delphi. Do we just shut the door on everyone as soon as they're convicted because the jury always has it right? I'm not here to argue for Kohberger. I'm here to make you think. Give me your thoughts in the comments. And please do press subscribe so you don't miss any of our coverage here. I'm Tony Bruschi. We'll talk again real.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Bruschi and the Hidden Killers podcast.